Greetings, salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Movie News. My name is John Campea, Senior Editor of AMC Movie News. Wishing you a happy holidays. I hope yours were as fun-filled as mine were with family and friends up here, coming to you from the Campea Ranch in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Listen, one of the most looked forward to and anticipated films, maybe of all time, but certainly of 2015, is the upcoming sequel to Man of Steel 2, also commonly being referred to as Batman vs. Superman. Now, there's a lot of talk and rumors going around about the film, and I don't want to focus on that talk or those rumors. Instead, today, I wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about the 5 key things that I believe Man of Steel 2 needs to do in order to succeed. Now, look, I'm sure the filmmakers know what they're doing. Maybe they have some things that aren't on my list that will make it work. Maybe they're missing some things that are on my list, and that doesn't mean it won't work. But just from an outside point of view, looking ahead a year and a half into the future, these are the 5 elements that I believe are really important for Man of Steel to not only work as a film, but also work at the box office as well. Number 1, establish who Superman is, and don't ignore the events of the first movie. Remember, there's still a lot to kind of evolve and tie up after the events of Man of Steel. I'm sure there's a temptation to just say, hey, he beat Zod. That's it, story over, right? Well, no. Remember, Kal-El still has a number of things that he really needs to deal with. First and foremost, his coming into his own and his destiny. Remember, he has 2 fathers, and both of which had very specific dreams and ambitions for him. Jor-El has this vision of Kal-El becoming like the savior of humanity, whereas Pa Kent saw him as becoming not just a really good man, but somebody who would change the world for the better. They sound a lot alike, but those are really 2 different things, and I'm sure that's a struggle that Kal-El needs to continue wrestling with as he comes into his own as a character. Now, the other thing to keep in mind from the first film and talking about who he is and how he develops is understand this. He can't just suddenly be Superman, the man everybody on planet Earth loves. When we reach the end of Man of Steel, don't forget, the world's first exposure to Kal-El is the fact that he is an alien from another planet, and in many ways was kind of the harbinger of an alien invasion that nearly destroyed the world. I'm sure amongst the population of the Earth, there's going to be a lot of mixed feelings about Kal-El, and they need to address that and wrestle through it with Man of Steel 2 in order for it to feel credible as far as the narrative goes. Number 2, give significant time to Batman. It almost goes without saying that Man of Steel 2 or Batman vs. Superman needs to just about be as much about Batman as it is about Superman. Look, you can't pull the stunt that Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers did at Comic-Con, reading that sacred passage from The Dark Knight Returns about, I want you to remember, Clark, the one man who beat you. And you can't bring up that big Batman-Superman logo and then go into Man of Steel 2 and just have Batman in like 15 or 20 minutes of the film. Batman needs to play a major significant role in this film. Now, that may seem like it goes without saying, but it's something that would be easy to overlook. And let's not forget this. Batman is the crowning jewel at Warner Brothers right now. Right now, there is no existing and running franchise that is as big, as popular, and as profitable as the Batman franchise is. It's not an exaggeration to say that Warner Brothers needs a working, thriving, and popular Batman character in this Justice League cinematic universe. I'll go so far as to say this. The entire future of the DC cinematic universe hinges on Batman in this movie with Ben Affleck working and working well. He's got to work narratively, and he has to be popular and go over well with the fans. And so it does kind of go without saying that Batman needs to play an absolutely huge, significant role in Batman vs. Superman. Number 3. Focus on the relationship/dynamic between Batman and Superman. Warner Brothers understands that moving forward with their whole Justice League cinematic universe, that everything that comes from this point forward is going to be based on the dynamic between Batman and Superman. The entire formation of the Justice League is going to be predicated on this relationship and how these two interact and meet. And let's not forget this as well. Bruce Wayne can't just see Superman as another great superhero. No. Remember the whole perception that the world has of Kal-El right now, that they don't know what to make of him. He was the harbinger of an alien invasion. And Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, has to look at Superman in this movie as the greatest threat the Earth has ever known. Maybe he's a hero, maybe he's a good guy, but that doesn't change the fact, the way that Bruce Wayne looks at things, that Kal-El is also the greatest threat the planet has ever known. And also, there's a really great line in the whole Justice Gods Among Us, you know, the video game? Well, there's a 30 33-issue comic book series. I believe it's 33 issues. And in the final issue, as Batman and Superman are fighting, Superman is beating down Batman, and Batman says this to him. He says, "I can't stop you without killing you, and that's something I will not do. I can't stop you without killing you." I can't help but wonder if at some point Batman is going to just look at Superman and think, I don't kill, and there's no way I can stop this guy without killing him. Therefore, I have to find a way to make this work. That would be pretty interesting. Number 4, introduce Lex Luthor. Look, I'm not saying make Lex Luthor the big bad guy in this film. I mean, you can have him as the big bad guy, and that's totally fine. But Lex Luthor is as synonymous with Superman as the big S on his chest, as synonymous with him as the big flowing red cape. Lex Luthor is the proverbial yin to Superman's yang. Superman is almost defined, in part, by his relationship with Lex Luthor, much in the way that the Joker kind of defines who Batman is in a lot of ways. So if you're going to have a universe with Superman in it, it's totally cool that he wasn't there at all in the first film, and actually it's a pretty good idea that it wasn't in the first. But you have to at least introduce him into this world, because part of Superman's identity comes from that relationship with Lex Luthor, that adversarial relationship, and therefore I think you need to at least get started. Have him as the main villain? Yeah, you could do that now, but you don't need to. You just have to at least introduce us to him. Number 5, resist the urge to make it a Justice League movie. Look, you can forgive Warner Brothers if the temptation seems really huge to just make Justice League. After all, with all the success of the Avengers and the Marvel Cinematic Universe going on, Warner Brothers kind of has a huge temptation to just do Justice League. Not to mention, with the success of Man of Steel, there's a huge temptation to just go, let's just go Justice League. But you need to resist this temptation. Look, I've said all along that I really do believe that you could have started this whole new DC Cinematic Universe with a Justice League and then spun off individual films. But in starting this new DC Cinematic Universe the way they did with Man of Steel and now doing Batman vs. Superman, it would be much, much wiser to keep the focus where we've already talked. The development of the character and identity of Clark Kent, understanding the rationale and the vision that both of his fathers had for him, as well as how the world perceives him, and on the relationship between Batman and Superman. These things need to be the focal point. It's totally cool if you bring in other characters. We already know Wonder Woman's going to be there. We know a couple of other characters will be there. It's even okay to have them play kind of small roles in the film throughout. It doesn't have to just be a cameo. But in doing all of that, you have to make sure that the focus of the film does not become Justice League. At this point, it's got to be on Clark Kent, and it's got to be on the relationship that he has with Bruce Wayne / Batman. Do those things, and I think they'll be in good shape. If they start running off in a whole bunch of different directions and try to do a whole lot with Wonder Woman and a whole lot with Martian Manhunter and a whole lot with Aquaman, if they do that, the movie is suddenly going to start to feel convoluted and weighed down, and I think this new DC Cinematic Universe, this Justice League Cinematic Universe, will be halted in its tracks before it even really gets started. Look, there are a million things that could go wrong with this movie, absolutely. Whenever you have a franchise with this much potential and this much anticipation, 1,000 different things could go wrong. However, I remain optimistic. They did a great job with Man of Steel, which is still one of my favorite films of 2013, and I think they're going to do a good job with this one as well, as long as they stick to these 5 things that I've laid out for you. Anyway, what do you think of the list? Do you think that some of these shouldn't be on there? Do you have some other must-have items that should have been included in a list like this? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. And listen, don't forget, great time to go out and catch a movie at AMC theaters near you. Head on over to www.AMC Theaters right now for your theater, showtime, and movie ticket information. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks a lot for joining me. My name is John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.